that the IS Sports that not all players are driving the revenue on things like trading cards to the same degree. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese cards sell more and far more money than other players. The PA, according to one agent, treated signing a group licensing GLM as a mandatory.
Look at that energy. That's not speculation anymore. That's someone who's been watching the behind-the-scenes chaos for months, finally seeing it spill into public view. And what he's talking about is the single biggest threat to the WNBA's 2026 season actually happening on time. Because right now, with less than 3 months until tip-off on May 8th, there's no collective bargaining agreement. And according to multiple agents who've been in those negotiation rooms, it's not the league holding things up, it's the veteran players themselves. Here's what makes this particularly explosive. For months, the public narrative has been simple: greedy owners refusing to pay players what they deserve. The league's been painted as the villain, hoarding profits while players struggle. But now agents, the people whose entire job is to get their clients paid, are breaking ranks and pointing fingers at the players' union. Specifically, at the veteran leadership, who've been driving these negotiations into the ground with demands that even their own representatives know are unrealistic.
Stated with the details on WNBA agents call for more transparency and communication from the players' union. Behind the scenes, agents have been talking about this issue for months. See, the agents are trying to make sure that the players get the money. But it looked like to me, based off what I'm hearing behind the scenes, is that agents could be trying to figure out a way to still have the league without these damn veteran players, because it's the old hacks that is holding up everything, bro. They want this revenue sharing. They're not going to get.
That's the core issue right there. Revenue sharing. And it's become the hill that veteran players are apparently willing to die on, even if it means blowing up the entire season. But here's what's fascinating about this moment. Agents are now openly discussing whether the league should just move forward without these veterans. Replacement players. A nuclear option that would fundamentally reshape the WNBA's power structure. Think about what that means. We're not talking about a lockout where everyone sits out and negotiates. We're talking about the league potentially saying, fine, we'll find new players who actually want to play basketball, and leaving the old guard behind. That's not a negotiation tactic, that's a divorce. And the reason agents are even entertaining this idea tells you everything about how frustrated they've become. These are the people who make money when their clients make money. They have zero incentive to side with owners over players. But when you've got Caitlin Clark's agent and others watching veteran players demand revenue sharing that would actually hurt the league's top earners, you start to see why the unity is cracking.
Lately, as we come closer to the league's deadline on March 10th, our players discussing from a strategic standpoint whether it's better to force the league to lock them out rather than to strike and lose benefits. So, to me, this is just a theory of mine. I believe it's going to be a little replacement players type action, bro. That's what I truly believe is going to go down. I don't believe that these players are going to sign a deal between now and the
March 10th. That's the deadline. And multiple sources are now saying openly that they don't believe a deal gets done by then, which means we're looking at either a lockout or the league moving forward with replacement players while the union digs in. But here's the detail everyone's missing in this fight. The WNBA actually triggered revenue sharing for the first time ever in 2025. $8 million got distributed to the 13 teams to give to their players. This isn't theoretical money anymore, it actually happened. The league made enough revenue to hit the threshold that triggers payments to players beyond their base salaries. So when Brianna Turner, who's the WNBA treasurer, tells ESPN, "This shows our value and how what we're fighting for makes sense," she's right about the first part. The league did generate real revenue. But here's where the veteran players are losing the plot. They're fighting about what kind of revenue to share, not whether to share it at all. And that distinction is about to cost them everything.
Years, like, how much of an issue has that lack of transparency been for you?
It's been a big issue. First of all, the players have been standing their ground, and the players have been right this whole time. In order for the WNBA to save this league right now, you have to open the books. Let me repeat, open the books. What's the big deal? Guess what? You open the books and we're wrong? Okay, you know what? Sorry, WNBA, we were wrong. We'll take it back. We'll shut our mouths. We'll go play. We'll do everything you ask. So why not open the books?
The league called the recent proposal unrealistic, and it could lead to hundreds of millions of dollars of losses for our teams. But again, we're finding out that a lot of things are trending up. So it's not, the stories don't all line up and make sense.
There it is. The fundamental divide, gross revenue versus net revenue. And this is where the veteran players have planted their flag and refused to move. The players want 27 to 30% of gross revenue. That's the total money coming in before any expenses. The league is offering them 50% of net revenue, the money left after you pay for charter flights, arena costs, hotels, security, all the operating expenses that come with running a professional sports league. Now here's what the players' union keeps pointing to. The NBA gives players 50% of basketball-related income. The NFL gives 48%. The NHL gives 50%. All of those leagues use variations of gross revenue models. So the players are arguing, why should we be the only league that has to accept net revenue? And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. Until you look at the actual numbers and realize why the WNBA is different. The NBA generated $10 billion in revenue last season. The WNBA generated roughly $200 million. That's a 50-to-1 difference. When you're working with NBA-level money, you can afford to give away huge percentages of gross revenue, because even after expenses, there's still billions left over. But when you're the WNBA, giving away 30% of gross revenue before you've paid for anything means you're operating at a massive loss.
New information about attendance records being set around WNBA, team expansion fees. Geez Louise, billionaires are fighting for a chance to bring a WNBA team to their cities for $250 million price tags, $300 million price tags. This is real money coming in. Plus, I didn't even mention marketing and sponsorship coming in. Here's where we come back to the pie. Is it gross or is it net revenue? What we're seeing is that there's an issue in agreement, not only on the slice of pie, but what the pie even is. Like, are y'all having apple pie or are y'all having pumpkin pie? Because these are two completely different pies.
Yeah.
The pie the players are talking about is gross revenue, which is the total money a business makes. They want 27 to 30% of that. And the players have been in negotiations willing to come down on that percentage. Now, the league is standing firm on net.
Listen to how she frames this. Open the books. That's become the rallying cry for players who don't believe the league's claims about financial losses. And honestly, it's a fair demand. The WNBA has never shown players their complete financial records. They make claims about losing money, but they won't provide the documentation to prove it. But here's the problem with that argument. Even if the league opened every book tomorrow and showed exactly where every dollar goes, it wouldn't change the fundamental math. The players are demanding a revenue model that every financial analyst who's looked at this says would bankrupt multiple teams within 2 years. And we know this because we can see what's actually happening with expansion. Teams are selling for $250 million right now. Portland just went for $300 million. Billionaires are fighting each other for the chance to own WNBA franchises. That doesn't happen if the league is a financial disaster. But it also doesn't happen if you structure player compensation in a way that guarantees massive losses every single year. Here's what the veteran players aren't acknowledging. Those expansion fees, that's new money coming in. But it's one-time money. You sell a franchise once, and then that team has to operate profitably year after year. If you're giving away 30% of gross revenue before you've paid for charter flights, before you've paid for arena rentals, before you've paid for any of the infrastructure that makes the league work, those expansion teams go broke fast.
Come down. They went down 1.5%, bro. They went from 27.5 to 26.
Money after expenses like charter planes, arenas, hotels, security, operating costs. So that number is much smaller. That pie is much smaller to even take a slice out of. And they're standing firm on that 70% of net revenue. You know, something else that's looking funny in the light too, other major professional leagues, NFL, NBA, NHL.
Let's go through it.
Like all of them are using that gross model. So they're starting from a much bigger pie and giving up much bigger slices of that pie than the WNBA is. I will point.
That's the moment where the argument falls apart. Because he's right. The other leagues are bigger. They have bigger viewership. They have more established revenue streams. But that's not the comparison that matters here. The comparison that matters is this. What were NBA players making in 1979, 28 years after the league started? Because that's where the WNBA is right now. 28 years old, still building its audience, still establishing its market value. And when you make that comparison, WNBA players are actually doing better relative to league revenue than NBA players were at the same stage. But here's what really undermines the players' position. They went from demanding 27.5% of gross revenue down to 26%, and they're acting like that's a major concession. That's a 1.5% reduction. Meanwhile, the gap between what they're demanding and what the league can actually afford is more like 15 to 20%. That's not negotiating. That's posturing. And the agents who represent these players are starting to say it publicly because they can see what's coming. The season gets canceled, fans blame the players for being greedy, and the next negotiation happens with way less public support.
Sport vision. Let's listen.
Angel.
All right, let's get into it, man.
WNBA, CBA negotiations. We are less than 3 months away from the alleged May 8th start of the WNBA season and tip-off, and there's still no new deal. But there is new information, and one thing we love is the tea.
The tea.
No, but for real, no, the newest news is actually really eye-opening. Mm-hmm. We recently found out that in 2025, the WNBA generated enough revenue to trigger revenue sharing with its players. This is the first time that's ever happened. There hasn't been enough money made.
Now we're getting to the real story. Because this isn't just about money or revenue models or gross versus net. This is about a specific group of veteran players who've controlled the union for years and are now watching their leverage disappear. Here's what changed. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. The 2024 rookie class brought in millions of new fans who don't have any loyalty to the old guard. These new fans are watching because of specific players, and those players are the ones generating the actual revenue. Their jersey sales, their ticket sales, their TV ratings, that's where the money's coming from. And the agents representing those players are looking at this revenue sharing proposal and doing the math. If you distribute money equally across all players based on gross revenue, you're taking money away from the stars who are actually driving that revenue and giving it to veterans who aren't moving the needle at all. Caitlin Clark's agent isn't going to let his client subsidize players who can't sell tickets. This is where the group licensing agreement becomes crucial. The players' union has required every player entering the league to sign over their group licensing rights as a mandatory condition of joining. That means Caitlin Clark doesn't get to negotiate her own trading card deals or jersey sales separately. It all goes into one pot that gets divided up, and two legal experts who spoke to ESPN said that arrangement might not even be legal. Because if you're forcing players to give up individual earning potential as a condition of employment, and some players are generating vastly more value than others, you're potentially violating antitrust law.
They're a bigger league. They have bigger viewership, and everything is more trending upwards with these other leagues. Guys, I want to know your thoughts down in the comment section. Keep them bells on. I will be back with more videos. Until next time, man, shake the haters off. I'm out of here.
Here's what makes this moment so significant for the future of the WNBA. We're watching a generational power shift happen in real time, and the veteran players who've controlled the narrative for years are about to lose that control completely. Think about the position this puts everyone in. The league knows they can't give the veterans what they're demanding without going broke. The agents know their star clients are being hurt by the union's strategy. The new fans don't care about the old players' grievances. They're here for Clark and Reese and the next generation. And the March 10th deadline is racing toward everyone while the veterans refuse to budge. So what actually happens? One of three scenarios. First option, the veterans cave at the last minute, accept something closer to the league's offer, and try to save face by claiming they got concessions on other issues. That's the best case scenario for everyone, because the season happens on time and nobody loses their paycheck. Second option, the league locks the players out, negotiations continue through the summer, and we get a shortened season that starts in July or August. That's bad for everyone, but survivable. You lose half the season, you lose some fans, but the league comes back and rebuilds. Third option, the nuclear scenario. The league says fine, we're moving forward with replacement players, and they hold open tryouts for anyone who wants to play professional basketball. The union loses all leverage because turns out there are thousands of women who would love to play in the WNBA for whatever salary is offered. The veteran players who held out get left behind, and the league rebuilds with younger, cheaper talent who are just grateful for the opportunity. That third option sounds extreme until you remember that it's exactly what the NFL did in 1987. The players went on strike, the league brought in replacement players, and after 3 weeks, the strike collapsed because fans kept watching and the replacement players kept playing. The union's leverage evaporated overnight, and here's why that scenario is more likely than people think. The WNBA's new fans don't have decades of loyalty to specific players. They're not going to boycott the league because Breanna Stewart isn't playing. They might actually be curious to see what the next generation looks like without the old guard controlling everything. The agents can see this coming. That's why they're breaking ranks publicly. They're trying to warn the veteran players that their strategy is about to backfire catastrophically. Because once you lose a season, once you force the league to prove they can operate without you, you never get that leverage back. Look at what's actually driving revenue right now. Caitlin Clark's games averaged 1.2 million viewers on cable. Games without her averaged under 400,000. That's a 3-to-1 difference. Angel Reese's jersey was the second bestseller all season. The rookie class generated more media coverage than the previous 5 years combined. So when veteran players demand equal revenue sharing, what they're really demanding is that the stars who drive all the interest subsidize players who don't move the needle. And the agents representing those stars are finally saying out loud what they've been thinking privately. Why should my client take less money so that veterans who can't sell tickets can take more? This is the fundamental tension that's been building since Caitlin Clark got drafted. The old WNBA was a tight-knit community where everyone supported each other and shared resources equally because they were all struggling together. The new WNBA has actual stars with actual market value who can command actual money. And those two versions of the league can't coexist under the same economic model. The veteran players are fighting to preserve a system where seniority and solidarity matter more than individual star power. The agents and the league are trying to build a system where the players who drive revenue get paid accordingly. And there's no compromise position that satisfies both sides. So we're heading toward March 10th with no deal in sight. The players' union is betting that the league will blink first because they can't afford to lose a season. The league is betting that fans will blame the players for being greedy and demanding unrealistic terms. And the agents are quietly preparing for the possibility that their star clients might need to cross picket lines or play in a replacement league because sitting out a year isn't an option when you're trying to build a career. What happens next depends entirely on whether the veteran players are willing to accept reality. The WNBA isn't the NBA. It doesn't have the same revenue, the same viewership, or the same financial cushion. Demanding NBA-style compensation when you're generating a fraction of NBA-level revenue isn't fighting for fairness, it's economic suicide. And if those veteran players force this to a lockout or a replacement player scenario, they're going to learn a hard lesson. The league doesn't need them as much as they think it does. The fans came for Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, not for the players who've been in the league for 10 years. And once those veterans are gone, nobody's going to miss them enough to bring them back on their terms. The clock's ticking. March 10th is coming. And right now it's looking like the veteran players are going to choose pride over pragmatism and blow up their own league in the process. We'll see if they figure that out before it's too late. So here's the question you need to answer in the comments. If you're an agent representing Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese, and the veteran players force a lockout that costs your client a full season of earnings and career development, do you advise them to cross the picket line and play anyway? Because that's the decision that's coming in about 3 weeks. Let me know what you think happens next.